He refused surgery, told his doctors it was tasteless to prolong life artificially, asked for pencils and notepaper so he could keep working on equations. And when Albert Einstein passed away at Princeton Hospital on April 18, 1955, there were 12 pages of calculations by his bed, 12 pages of a theory he'd been chasing for 30 years that he never finished. The man who dissolved the boundaries between space and time couldn't let go of trying to unify the entire universe into one elegant equation. And here's what gets me. His Pisces sun explains the dreamy genius who reimagined reality itself, but there's a 12th house pattern that predicted exactly how isolated he'd become. And the moon in Sagittarius, that's why he spent 3 decades pursuing a philosophical dream while the entire physics community moved on without him. Wait till you see what his chart says about why someone that brilliant was also that messy. Quick thing before we dive in, if you love analyzing historical figures through their birth charts, hit subscribe. Drop a like if you're ready for this story. And real talk, knowing what you know about Einstein now, would you want that level of Pisces genius if it came with complete inability to do basic life tasks and total emotional chaos? Like, genuinely comment below, because I need to know if you'd trade normal functioning for that kind of transcendent brain. Okay, so Albert Einstein, born March 14th, 1879, 11:30 a.m. in Ulm, Germany, Pisces sun, Cancer rising, moon in Sagittarius. And listen, this chart is absolutely wild because it's basically a cosmic recipe for someone who lives entirely in their head while barely existing in physical reality. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, right? The one that's absorbed every other sign's energy before it. The dreamer. The dissolver of boundaries. And Cancer rising gives this sensitive, introverted shell to protect all that Pisces otherworldliness. Then you add Sagittarius moon, the philosopher, the seeker of ultimate truth, and you get someone who's literally incapable of accepting surface-level answers. Now here's what most people don't get about Pisces. Everyone thinks they're just soft and artistic and emotional. And sure, that's there. But Pisces rules the subconscious, dreams, the invisible patterns underlying reality. They don't see the world the way everyone else does because they're constantly dissolving the rigid structures other people need to function. That's Pisces' superpower and their fatal flaw. They can imagine what others can't, but they also lose touch with basic reality in the process. And Einstein? Perfect example. This man could visualize riding a beam of light through space-time, but couldn't remember to wear socks. Born with a misshapen head that worried his mother. Didn't speak until age 3. Not because he couldn't, because he was rehearsing full sentences in his internal world before saying them out loud. Classic Pisces behavior. Living in the realm of pure thought. His family thought he was backward. Teachers thought he was slow. What they didn't understand was that he was operating on a completely different plane of consciousness. While other kids were learning to socialize and follow rules, little Albert was building 14-story houses out of playing cards and getting lost in abstract concepts that wouldn't have names for decades. At 12, he discovered a geometry book, called it his sacred little geometry book, devoured it. Then went through an intense religious phase where he composed hymns and chanted on his way to school. But by 13, after reading Kant and Euclid alone in his room, Pisces loves solitude, by the way. He became completely disillusioned with organized religion and dogma. See, Pisces doesn't do dogma. They dissolve it. They question the fundamental nature of everything until the old structures crumble. And that's exactly what Einstein did with physics. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. 16 years old, he dropped out of the Luitpold Gymnasium. Just quit. Why? Because German education was all about rote memorization and military-style discipline. And Einstein, with his Pisces sun and Sagittarius moon, was like, absolutely not. That combination needs freedom to explore ideas wherever they lead. Rigid authority? Stifling structure? His chart literally cannot function in that environment. So he convinced a doctor to write him a note diagnosing him with neurasthenic exhaustion and moved to Italy to join his family. Also, potentially dodged German military service in the process. Smart. He renounced his German citizenship at 16, gave up his Jewish faith, told his parents he was going to study for the entrance exams to the Federal Polytechnic in Zurich. And here's the thing, he failed the entrance exam the first time. Failed it. The guy who would become the most famous genius in history couldn't pass a standard university entrance test because he refused to play by conventional rules. But the rector saw something in him and suggested he attend the cantonal school in Aarau first. So he did. And in 1896, he finally got into the Polytechnic. Now, at university, Einstein was not a model student. He skipped lectures constantly, preferred to study on his own with his Pisces need for solitude and his Sagittarius moon's independent learning style. Graduated in 1900 as an average student, his professors didn't think highly of him. None of them would recommend him for university positions. So Albert Einstein, physics student, couldn't get a job in physics. Classic Pisces struggle, honestly. Brilliant in their own world, but terrible at navigating conventional systems. For 2 years he scraped by. Temporary high school teaching gigs. Private tutoring. In 1902, he had an illegitimate daughter with Mileva Maric, a fellow physics student he'd fallen for. They named her Lee Searle, and here's where the Pisces chart gets complicated. She either passed away or was given up for adoption. We don't actually know. Einstein never spoke about her publicly. That Pisces tendency to keep emotional wounds hidden in the subconscious realm. Cancer rising, adding extra layers of protection around vulnerable feelings. In 1902, he finally landed a position at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern, third-class technical expert, examining inventions for gravel sorting machines and weather indicators. Most people would see this as failure. Einstein later called it that secular cloister where I hatched my most beautiful ideas, because here's what Pisces does. They retreat. They need time away from the chaos of the external world to access the deeper patterns underneath. And working at a patent office, examining other people's inventions 6 days a week, it gave his mind exactly the right kind of stimulation without overwhelming his sensitive system. He married Mileva in 1903, had 2 more sons, Hans Albert in 1904 and Eduard in 1910. And on paper, life looked normal: job, wife, kids. But Einstein's internal world was somewhere else entirely. Then came 1905, the miracle year. And this is where the Pisces chart just explodes into genius. While still working full-time at the patent office, Einstein published 4 papers in the journal Annuländer Physik that literally revolutionized physics. 4. In 1 year. Let me break this down because it's actually insane. March 1905. Paper on the photoelectric effect. He proposed that light wasn't a continuous wave like everyone believed. It was made of discrete particles. Quanta. This idea was so revolutionary, so contrary to everything physicists knew to be true, that Einstein himself called it very revolutionary before it was even published. It earned him the Nobel Prize 16 years later. This is pure Pisces energy. The ability to dissolve the boundaries everyone else sees as fixed. Light isn't just a wave, it's also particles, both at once. Of course, a Pisces came up with that. They don't accept either or. They live in the realm of both and. May 1905, paper on Brownian motion proved that atoms existed by explaining how tiny particles bounce around in liquid, gave scientists a way to actually count atoms, turned theoretical physics into measurable reality. Again, Pisces connecting the invisible world to the visible one. June 1905. Special theory of relativity. This one's the big one. Einstein said the speed of light is constant, but time and space are relative to the observer. Time can slow down, space can contract. Depends on how fast you're moving. This shattered Newton's laws that had been fundamental to physics for 200 years. And how did Einstein figure this out? Not through complex mathematics, through thought experiments. He imagined riding a beam of light, visualized what would happen. The math came after. That's the Pisces gift. They can see what doesn't exist yet in the realm of pure imagination. September 1905, follow-up paper that gave us E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Mass and energy are the same thing in different forms. The most famous equation in history. And it came from a 26-year-old patent clerk with a Pisces sun who could visualize the fundamental nature of reality because he wasn't bound by conventional thinking. 4 groundbreaking papers, 1 year. While working full-time, With two small kids at home, this is the Pisces miracle. When they tap into that transcendent vision, when they access those deeper patterns of reality that most people can't see, they don't just make discoveries. They reshape how humanity understands existence itself. But here's what's wild. Einstein later said his work on light quanta was the only one he considered truly revolutionary at the time. The special relativity stuff? He thought that was just figuring out logical inconsistencies, which tells you everything about how a Pisces mind works. They're not impressed by their own genius because to them, they're just seeing what's already there, dissolving illusions, revealing the truth underneath. After 1905, things changed. He started getting academic positions. 1908, assistant professor at the University of Zurich. 1911, professor at the German University of Prague. 1912, back to Zurich. 1914, Berlin. Prestigious research position. No teaching duties. Freedom to think. For most people, this would be the dream. For Einstein's marriage, this was the beginning of the end. By 1909, Mileva was writing to friends that Albert lives only for his work and the family is unimportant to him. Classic Pisces pattern. When they're absorbed in their transcendent vision, the material world just fades. Relationships, responsibilities, basic human needs, all secondary to whatever cosmic truth they're chasing. And Einstein was chasing general relativity. The big one, the theory that would explain gravity itself. In 1912, while in Prague, he started an affair with his first cousin, Elsa Lowenthal. His Pisces sun doesn't deal well with confrontation or conflict, so instead of dealing with his failing marriage, he just escaped into a new relationship. Pisces coping mechanism. When reality gets too painful, retreat into fantasy or find an alternate reality that feels better. They maintained a secret correspondence for 2 years. Very Pisces, keeping the emotional truth hidden below the surface. Einstein moved to Berlin for that research position. Mileva came with the boys initially, but it was a disaster. He was having an affair. The marriage was dead. And here's where Einstein did something that's honestly shocking. He wrote Mileva a list of conditions she'd have to accept if she wanted to stay married to him. Ready for this? She had to keep his room and clothes tidy. Serve him 3 meals a day, expect no intimacy from him, stop talking to him if he requested it, leave his bedroom immediately without protest if he asked, and renounce all personal relationships with him except when they were appearing socially. Basically, be a housekeeper who he occasionally had to be seen with in public. That's not marriage. That's Pisces at its absolute worst. So detached from human connection, so absorbed in their internal world that other people become props in their story instead of actual human beings. Mileva took the boys and left for Zurich. They separated in 1914, divorced in 1919, and in the divorce agreement, Einstein promised her the Nobel Prize money if he ever won it, which is wild because he hadn't won it yet. That's Pisces' faith in their own vision, or Pisces' complete detachment from material reality, or both. He married Elsa that same year, 1919. Also the year British astronomers confirmed his general theory of relativity during a solar eclipse. Light from stars bent around the sun exactly as Einstein predicted. He became world famous overnight, the genius who proved Newton wrong, celebrity scientist, but personally, still a mess. He had affairs throughout his second marriage, too. His secretary Betty Newman, Berlin socialite Ethel Michanowski, others. He even wrote to Elsa, basically saying one should do what one enjoys and won't harm anyone else, which is such Pisces reasoning. No boundaries, everything flowing into everything else. Do what feels good in the moment without considering consequences. His son Edward developed schizophrenia, spent much of his life institutionalized. Einstein had complicated feelings about this. Wrote that Edward was the more refined of my sons, the one I considered really of my own nature. Seized by an incurable mental illness. There's something haunting about that. The Pisces father recognizing himself in the son whose mind couldn't hold on to reality. Meanwhile, the 1920s and 30s, Einstein's working on general relativity, becoming more involved in pacifism, Zionism, supporting the German Republic. And then starting in the late 1920s, he begins his quest for a unified field theory, the theory that would unite gravity and electromagnetism. Later, all the forces of nature, One elegant equation that would explain everything. This becomes his obsession, his white whale. And this is where the Pisces shadow side really kicks in. See, while Einstein's chasing this unifying vision, the rest of physics is moving toward quantum mechanics. And Einstein hates it, absolutely rejects it. Quantum mechanics says particles exist in probability states until they're observed. That reality at the quantum level is fundamentally uncertain, random. And Einstein's Pisces sun combined with Sagittarius moon cannot accept this. His whole worldview is built on the idea that there's a deeper order underlying everything, that the universe makes sense, that if you can just see the pattern clearly enough, the truth will be simple and elegant and unified. God does not play dice with the universe, he famously said. But quantum mechanics said yes, actually it does. So Einstein becomes increasingly isolated. His colleagues are doing quantum theory. He's doing unified field theory. They think he's wasting his time. He thinks they're missing the point. That Pisces stubbornness when they've locked onto a vision. That Sagittarius moon need to find the ultimate philosophical truth. He can't let it go. Hitler rises to power. Einstein's in the United States when it happens. He never returns to Germany. Eventually settles at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. Becomes an American citizen in 1940. Elsa passes away in 1936. And Einstein basically lives like a hermit after that. "I live like a bear in my den," he wrote. "This bearishness has been further enhanced by the death of my woman comrade." That's Pisces withdrawing completely into their internal world. He keeps working on the unified field theory, paper after paper. Different mathematical approaches, testing, trying, failing, trying again. His assistant Ernst Strauss remembered working on an approach for almost 2 years. Then one evening, Strauss found that their equations led to conclusions that clearly couldn't be true. He was devastated, figured Einstein would be too. But the next day, Einstein was excited as ever, already had a new approach they could try. That's Pisces resilience. When reality doesn't match the vision, they just dissolve reality and try a different path to the same dream. He signs a letter to President Roosevelt warning that Germany might develop atomic bombs, recommending the U.S. develop them first. This haunted him later. "I made one great mistake in my life," he said in 1954 when I signed that letter. His equation E equals mc squared made the atomic bomb possible. His Pisces compassion couldn't reconcile with the destruction his discovery enabled. By the 1950s, Einstein's still at it, still chasing the unified field theory, still isolated from mainstream physics. Most of his colleagues think he's wasted his final decades, that he should have embraced quantum mechanics, moved with the times, but that's not how Pisces operates. When they're locked onto a vision of ultimate truth, of underlying unity, they can't pivot. They dissolve boundaries, they don't adapt to new ones. April 13th, 1955, Einstein's working at the Institute on another set of equations. His abdominal aortic aneurysm ruptures. He'd had it for years. It finally burst. Doctors recommend surgery. He refuses. "It is tasteless to prolong life artificially," he tells his secretary. "I have done my share. It is time to go. I will do it elegantly, pure Pisces, accepting death as a natural dissolution, no resistance, just flowing into the next phase." They take him to Princeton Hospital. He asks for notepaper and pencils, keeps working on the unified field theory, even while dying. When they find him passed away on April 18th, there are 12 pages of equations by his bed. 30 years of pursuing a dream he never finished. 30 years the physics community said he wasted. But here's what I keep coming back to. Einstein's Pisces sun gave him the ability to dissolve the boundaries between space and time, to see that mass and energy are one thing, to imagine what no one else could see and reshape physics itself. That's the Pisces gift, transcendent vision, access to deeper patterns, the willingness to question absolutely everything until the truth reveals itself. But that same Pisces energy made him incapable of maintaining normal relationships, made him disappear into his own world for decades, chasing a theory that never worked, made him messy and forgetful and emotionally detached because the material world just didn't register as real compared to the cosmic patterns he could see. The Cancer rising protected his sensitive interior, but also isolated him. The Sagittarius moon gave him that philosophical depth, but also made him unable to settle for practical reality when ultimate truth felt so close. And that 12th house influence in his chart, the house of isolation, hidden things, the unconscious realm, that predicted exactly how his life would end. Alone, withdrawn, pursuing invisible patterns while the rest of the world moved on. The 12th house is where Pisces energy lives, the realm between worlds, neither fully here nor fully there. Einstein revolutionized our understanding of the universe. He gave us relativity, proved atoms exist, showed that energy and mass are interchangeable, made physics beautiful by revealing its underlying simplicity. And he did all of that because his Pisces chart wouldn't let him accept the world as everyone else saw it. He had to dissolve the boundaries, had to find the pattern underneath, had to access that transcendent realm where different truths could coexist. But he also spent his final 30 years isolated, chasing a theory that never materialized, unable to accept quantum randomness because his chart demanded ultimate unity, incapable of basic human warmth in relationships because his consciousness lived somewhere else entirely, physically present but emotionally elsewhere, brilliant beyond measure but unable to function in normal reality. That's what happens when Pisces fully embodies both its light and shadow, when Cancer rising reinforces the retreat into protective isolation, when Sagittarius moon refuses to stop seeking the ultimate philosophical answer. You get someone who changes humanity's understanding of existence itself, and also someone who can't remember to wear socks. The chart predicted it all: the genius, the messiness, the transcendent vision, and the lonely ending, the ability to see what others couldn't, and the inability to connect with what everyone else found simple. The dissolution of physics' rigid boundaries and the dissolution of his own personal boundaries till there was nothing left but the quest itself. And honestly, that's the Pisces experience, accessing realms most people never see, dissolving structures that limit everyone else, finding patterns in the chaos, but also losing touch with basic reality in the process, existing between worlds, never quite here, never quite there, genius and disaster wrapped into one dreamy, messy, transcendent package. That's why Albert Einstein, the smartest person ever, was exactly the kind of Pisces his chart said he'd be.